Have you ever shared your joy with someone you love and felt the room shift? You tell them about your small victory or the spark of inspiration that lit up your day. But instead of warmth, you notice the air grow colder. Their smile falters. Their eyes narrow, just slightly. And suddenly, your joy feels like a threat. If you are highly sensitive, what today we often call an empath, though Jung would have described it as someone with unusually thin boundaries between self and other, you know this moment well. It's not shouted, it's not obvious, but it cuts deeper than open hostility. It is the envy of someone who claims to love you. Jung believed envy was never just about possessions or achievements. Envy is a shadow emotion, a sign that the other person is being confronted with something inside themselves they cannot bear to face. And when you live with heightened sensitivity, your very presence can stir that confrontation in others. In this journey, we're going to explore why empaths so often awaken envy in those closest to them, how Jung's ideas of the shadow, projection, and archetype illuminate this strange reaction, and most importantly, how you can protect your sensitivity without being drained. Because envy disguised as love is one of the most dangerous patterns you will ever face, and one of the most important to recognize. The nature of envy. We often think envy is about money, beauty, or success. But Jung would say envy is more subtle, and far more corrosive. At its core, envy is the shadow's rebellion against the light. You can see this in everyday moments. A young woman confides in her best friend about finally starting the art class she's dreamed of for years. Instead of encouragement, her friend shrugs and says, "Well, I guess some people have the free time for that." The words are casual, but the message is clear: your joy unsettles me. Or imagine a workplace. A colleague stays late to finish a project, and the next morning their manager barely acknowledges it. Another coworker mutters, "Some people really like showing off." What should have been affirmation becomes a dismissal. For people who live mostly at the surface, meeting someone who feels life in high definition can be disorienting. Your sensitivity doesn't just notice moods, it amplifies them. You reflect emotions back before others even know they're there. And for someone who has built their identity on avoiding their own depths, your presence is threatening. Jung described this through projection, the unconscious tendency to disown a part of ourselves and place it onto someone else. When a shallow person encounters someone with real emotional clarity, they may feel exposed. They see their own emptiness reflected in your depth, their own numbness mirrored by your vitality. And because they cannot face it, they attack it. Not always with open hostility, but through subtle withdrawal, cutting remarks, or sudden coldness. Myth has always known this. The story of Cain and Abel, the first brothers, is a story of envy. Cain cannot bear the favor Abel receives, and so he destroys him. In the myth of Joseph, his brothers cannot tolerate his gift of dreams, and so they sell him into slavery. Across cultures, the same pattern repeats. Envy arises not because someone has too much, but because their very being reveals what the other has lost. And so, your gift becomes a mirror. But instead of gratitude, it evokes resentment, not because you are too much, but because you remind them of everything they are not yet ready to face within themselves. Projection and archetypes. Jung taught that envy is never really about the other person. It is always about the shadow, the unknown parts of ourselves we would rather not see. When someone envies you, they are not responding to who you are. They are reacting to what you awaken in them. Your openness makes them feel their own guardedness. Your authenticity makes them feel their own masks. Your depth makes them aware of their own shallowness. Projection is how the psyche protects itself from this pain. Instead of admitting, "I feel inadequate," the unconscious flips the script: "You are too sensitive. You are too much. You are unstable." These labels are not descriptions of you. They are disguises for their own shadow. Jung often warned that projection is powerful because we are so quick to believe it. The qualities that disturb others get handed to us like an unwanted package, and if we are not careful, we carry them as though they were ours. On the archetypal level, this struggle repeats itself again and again. The empath often lives out the wounded healer, the figure who turns suffering into compassion, much like the mythic Chiron who could heal others though he could not heal his own wound. People are drawn to this light, to this rare capacity for empathy. But alongside the healer archetype, another figure arises in relationships poisoned by envy, what Jung might have called shadow possession. In everyday language, we might describe this as a kind of psychic vampire, someone who cannot generate their own vitality and survives by draining the vitality of others. The false lover, the friend who never celebrates your success, the partner who grows cold when you shine. They approach you under the language of affection, but unconsciously they are seeking to feed on the very sensitivity they resent. These patterns are not accidents. They are archetypal dramas playing out in the psyche. And until they are recognized, they repeat endlessly, leaving the sensitive person drained, doubting, and confused. Signs of envy in disguise. Envy rarely arrives in the open. No one sits across from you and says, "I resent your sensitivity." Instead, it hides itself beneath the language of affection. One common disguise is subtle sabotage. You share something important, maybe a new idea, a creative spark, a success at work, and it's brushed aside with a laugh. Don't take yourself so seriously. You always make a big deal out of things. It seems harmless, but the effect is sharp. Your joy is turned into a joke. Another disguise is withheld affirmation. You shine, you accomplish something meaningful, and instead of celebration you're met with silence. Your partner changes the subject. Your friend goes quiet. The warmth you expected never arrives. This silence is not neutral. It is the shadow's refusal to recognize your light. A third is reversal. You're told that you are too sensitive, too emotional, too much. What is actually happening is projection. Your depth unsettles them, and rather than face their discomfort, they hand it to you. And sometimes it shows up in families. The sibling who always interrupts your stories. The parent who says, "Don't be dramatic," when you are simply expressing yourself. These small dismissals seem ordinary, but together they form a pattern. Sensitive people also encounter envy through the language of dreams. Jung noticed that the psyche often reveals hidden dynamics through symbolic imagery. Many empaths describe dreams of sitting at a banquet where the plates are empty or filled with ashes, a picture of false love, a bond that promises nourishment but delivers nothing. Others dream of rising waters, floods that threaten to drown them, a sign that they are being overwhelmed by emotions that are not truly theirs. In waking life, these daggers are easy to overlook. But together they form a pattern: laughter that cuts, silence that wounds, accusations that confuse, dreams that unsettle. And unless you learn to recognize these disguises, envy will continue to feed on you while wearing the mask of love. The risk of internalizing envy. The greatest danger is not envy itself. It is what happens when you begin to believe it. A client once told me, "Every time I spoke up as a child, someone told me I was too sensitive. By the time I was a teenager, I stopped speaking up altogether. I thought silence would make me easier to love." This is how envy works. It plants its judgments inside you until you start living them as if they were your own. Slowly, the words of others take root. You hear "you're too emotional" often enough, and one day you catch yourself thinking it. You begin to edit yourself in advance, softening your words, holding back your excitement, dimming your own light so that no one else feels threatened. Without realizing it, you are carrying their shadow as if it were your burden. Jung warned that this is how projection survives. The outer voice becomes the inner saboteur. What begins as someone else's accusation becomes your inner critic. The judgments of family, partners, or friends echo in your own psyche until they sound like truth. Jung warned that this is how projection survives. The outer voice becomes the inner saboteur. What begins as someone else's accusation becomes your inner critic. The judgments of family, partners, or friends echo in your own psyche until they sound like truth. In psychoanalytic language, this is called introjection, when the psyche swallows the attitudes of others and mistakes them for its own. For the empath, introjection is particularly dangerous. Because you feel others so acutely, you are more likely to absorb their envy and wear it like a second skin, and so the tragedy unfolds. You were never fragile. But by internalizing envy, you begin to live as though you were. What was once your gift becomes a wound. This is why Jung insisted that recognizing projection is the first step toward freedom. As long as you mistake envy for truth, you remain trapped. But the moment you see it for what it is, a shadow that does not belong to you, the spell begins to break. The path out: boundaries, individuation, transformation. So how do you break free from envy disguised as love? The answer is not to harden your heart, nor to stop feeling. That would betray your nature. The answer is to transform sensitivity into strength, through boundaries, individuation, and conscious choice. Boundaries come first. But here's the paradox: boundaries are not walls. Walls shut out life. Boundaries are thresholds, sacred lines that protect the essence of who you are. They allow you to feel deeply without being consumed. They allow you to give without being emptied. Think of 3 thresholds every sensitive person must learn to guard: time. Not every demand deserves your immediate attention. You choose where your hours flow. Emotion: you can witness another person's feelings without absorbing them. Their storm is not your weather. Energy: notice who leaves you nourished and who leaves you drained. This is not about judgment, it is about discernment. Jung would call this strengthening the ego, not in the sense of arrogance, but in the sense of a clear center that knows what belongs to it and what does not. Then comes individuation. This was Jung's great insight, that our task in life is to become whole. For the empath, individuation means no longer existing as a mirror for everyone else's unconscious. Finally, there is transformation. When you stop absorbing envy, you reclaim the wound that once made you vulnerable, not as a curse but as a calling. Your empathy becomes conscious. You choose when to open, when to give, when to step back. You are no longer everyone's caretaker. You exist as your own sovereign self. This is the turning point. Envy loses its power when you refuse to carry it. The shadow may still project, but you no longer mistake it for truth. You shine without apology, and in doing so, you awaken others, not by absorbing their darkness, but by showing them that light is possible. Love versus envy. In the end, love and envy cannot live in the same house. They may wear the same clothes, they may use the same words, but their essence is different. Love delights in your light. It celebrates when you grow, when you succeed, when you shine brighter than before. Envy resents your light. It minimizes your joy, finds subtle ways to cut you back down. I once heard a man describe the confusion he felt in his marriage. Whenever he was struggling, his wife was tender and supportive, but the moment he succeeded, a promotion, a creative breakthrough, even just a joyful mood, she grew cold. She never said, "I envy you," but her silence carried the message. For years he thought he was imagining it. Only later did he realize he had been living in a house where envy masqueraded as care. Jung would say this: true love and envy cannot coexist, because love is rooted in the self, the wholeness of being, while envy is rooted in the shadow, in the fragments of the psyche that resist growth. The danger is not just in being envied, but in mistaking envy for devotion. If you cannot tell the difference, you will spend your life questioning your worth, apologizing for your light, shrinking to protect the comfort of others. But the opposite is also true. When you finally meet genuine love, you will know it because it feels different. You feel expanded, not diminished. Safe to be more, not pressured to be less. This is love without envy. And though it is rare, it is real, and it is the kind of bond in which both souls can grow. The sovereign empath. Your task is not to fix those who envy you. Your task is to become whole. For the empath, individuation means no longer existing as everyone else's mirror. It means refusing to betray your gift in order to soothe another's insecurity. The sovereign empath feels deeply, yet stands firmly. Loves truly, yet refuses pretense. Gives generously, yet guards their essence. They no longer dim themselves to avoid stirring envy, and they no longer mistake resentment for love. And here's the paradox: when you live this way, envy does not disappear, but it loses its power. It may still whisper, it may still disguise itself, but you see it for what it is, a reflection of another person's shadow, not the measure of your worth. Instead of confusing you, envy becomes a signal. A reminder that your light is strong enough to stir the unconscious in others. And that is not weakness, it is proof of your impact. The journey of the empath was never meant to end in victimhood. It was meant to end in sovereignty. To carry your light without apology. To let your sensitivity become not a wound, but a vocation, and to recognize that no shadow, no pretense, and no false love can ever extinguish the radiance of a soul that has embraced itself fully. That is your calling. That is your strength. That is the destiny of the sovereign empath. And remember this, their envy is not your burden. Your light is not theirs to dim.